Hey guys, welcome back to my shop. And if you watched one of my previous videos on how to build a small engine workbench slash stand, you will have been introduced already to this guy, the Predator 212. This engine was sitting outside for upwards of about 5 years, and it has been locked up for the majority of that time. So today we're going to see if we can unstick it. Alrighty, first things first, I need to get the plug out of here so I can get some Marvel Mystery Oil poured down in there and let it soak in for a bit, but this thing is completely full of leaves and all sorts of crap, so we need to get it blown out so I'm not getting crap down inside the engine. Got some stubborn stuff stuck down in there. What is that? It's like big pieces of wood or something. We don't need that down in there. I think we got it. Let's get the plug out. World's longest spark plug. Jeez. The end of that does not look good. It's definitely got some rust on it, that's for sure. Well, let's see what we can do with it anyhow. That should be more than enough. Now we'll just let that stuff kind of sit and do its thing. I cleaned up the end of the plug with a wire brush, so that way if we are able to get this thing unstuck, we'll try to use this plug and see if we get any spark, and if we don't, I'll just immediately suspect that the plug is an issue and take something out of something else I got around here that runs, that we know works, and try that out. But for right now, let's get this pulley off, or the starter. So that way we can have access to the pulley and can rock it back and forth and see if we can get this thing to be unfrozen. Let me see if I can find a socket to fit that nut so that way we can actually get a little leverage on that. Alright, looks to be a 19 millimeter. And for those that want to know, these three that I took out there, those were all 8 millimeter in case you're working on one of these engines for yourself. Save you a little bit of time. I'm going to go get a pull handle so I can go back and forth without having to switch the wrench. Well, well. Oh, there's the crunchy part. It's got something getting out of it there. That's interesting. That smells like Marvel Mystery Oil mixed with gas. It's missing the two nuts that hold on this cover, so I actually vaguely remember stealing those off for another engine, actually. At least I think I stole them off. I probably took them off and then just lost them. That sounds more like me. Just a few spiders and stuff living in there, it looks like. Okay, now I remember the two little nuts that hold this plastic cover on are also the same nuts that hold on the carburetor itself, so that might explain some of the leaking issues. And if I was turning it counter to the way it normally spins, it's going to be pushing everything back, I would suppose, and coming out the end of the carburetor. Gasket off of there first. What is it? Oh. I just need to get it pulled out enough to where I can unhook these guys right here. But it keeps hanging up. Okay, I'm just going to take this whole mess off of there. Alright, looks like if I loosen up this bracket right here, for some reason it's wanting to hit the underside of it. Maybe give me enough room to get this off. Here. Disconnect the spring. Or at least try to. There we go. Oh, need to get something to get that clamp off to unhook that hose. Hose looks like it might have a hole in it too. Oh. Almost. There. Well, it's dirty. I'll give it that. Alright, I'm going to try to get some of this mess cleaned up where it's leaking oil all over the place, so at least I can touch the camera freely without all this gobbledygook. Alright, I just stuck a clamp on this fuel line to keep it from leaking everywhere, and I'm going to stick this container underneath there, so hopefully if any more fuel slash Marvel Mystery Oil slash gunk comes out of there, it won't be getting all over the place. That way with it. There's the crunchy spot. Had to have a little break in the action there. My camera was yelling at me that the memory card was full. Guess I should delete some stuff every now and then. Fixing to get to the crusty spot. Yep. Oh, that sounds awful. I'm gonna hit it with some more lube. Squirt some of this stuff down in there this time. Man, I just can't win for losing. No sooner than I have the memory card full and go take care of that, the battery dies. So, where were we again? Okay. finally got it to go one rotation past all the corrosion, because as it sit there, wherever the piston was that it got stuck, there's a line of corrosion and rust and all sorts of crap around there. So there's going to be a rough spot in the cylinder wall. And I'm trying to use the piston itself and the rings to kind of clear it away. Which I can turn it by hand now, pretty easy. Instead of sticking a power tool on there to spin that around, I'm going to hold this cover back on there and give it a few good pulls and see what we can blow out of it. That's what the Marvel Mystery Oil looks like coming out now. It's completely just gooped up with rust. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and get this fuel tank out of here, or off of here, and try to get the old gas out of it. It's been in there a really long time, and I'd say it's pretty bad by now. It's just got two 10mm nuts that hold it on. I'm gonna have to get a wrench for that. You're going to remove this bolt right there. And looking at it, it goes through this bracket and into there's the bolt right there. Goes through that bracket and actually into the block right there. And I'm assuming goes all the way through into the gas tank, which is kind of weird going into the gas tank like that, but we'll take it out and see what happens. For whatever reason, that seems to want to round off. Let me get a different wrench. This is going to be fun. It's just slipping right on. For whatever reason, all the wrenches just want to slide and slip on that little nut. So I'm going to see if I can get it with some needle nosy vice grips. All right, let's get all of this crap out of the way. Get this spring off of there somehow or not. Okay, now let's see if we can get on there with a 6-point socket. All right, cross your fingers. Yeah, there we go. So, another lesson learned. get all this junk out of the way first. Now let's take the gas tank off. Ta-da! All right, I got all the fuel out of there, and you can see that down in there. Let's see, but it's pretty rusted, pretty corroded, very brown. Truth be told, I probably won't even bother using that gas tank anyway, because this is, if I can get it working, gonna probably be on a mini bike, which I'll be using a different gas tank for that, so I'm not terribly concerned. Of course, it's not so corroded that it couldn't be fixed, you know, just put some stuff in there and let it sit and get all that corrosion out, but I'm not gonna fool with it for right now, for definite sure. All right, let's put the plug in here and see if we get spark. Oh, I saw a spark. All right, it's got spark. Finally, a bit of good news. All right, I went ahead and put the throttle assembly back together. And I'm just going through here now with a little bit of sandpaper, trying to get at least some of the corrosion off of this. All right, I put the cover and the pull starter back on there. What do you say we squirt some gas down in it, stick the plug in, and see if it will do anything at all? That doesn't seem to be working. I think we're going to need a little starting fluid. Give it its best chance of actually hitting. Unfortunately, I don't have any starting fluid, so I'm going to have to go get some. It sounded like it hit a couple times just then. I'm going to pull the plug back out of here and hit it with another little dose of the gas. All right, I got the plug back out, and there is just so much gunk down inside that cylinder that I think it's just immediately fouling the plug out, to where we're not getting any spark. So it looks like I'm gonna need to probably pull the head off and try to get all that cleaned out of there, and that'll probably give us our best shot. So let's get into that. Right off the bat, we're gonna have to get this whole assembly out of the way to actually have some room to get in here. Let's see if we can get this exhaust out of the way. Looks like what size is that? 13 millimeter maybe? Yep, it's 13. And just in case, give ourselves the best chance possible here of breaking these loose. We'll hit it with some lube. If I can get in here with this. Oh, helps me put the right size socket on. My angle is a little wonky. Let's see if I can get that off with a wrench instead. See if we can get this box end on there and see if we can break this loose. There we go. All right. Exhaust removed. So now let's get in here and try to get these. Well, I guess we should get this tin cover off before anything else. It's got an 8 millimeter bolt on this side. Jeez. That one was really in there. And looks like it's yeah, it's also held on behind this. So at least this bolt down here holding this on will have to come out. When I started this project, I did not think that I would be coming very close to tearing this entire engine apart, but sometimes things just don't go the way you plan. All right, that takes care of that. So we got these two right here. And I guess the other two are hiding underneath the valve cover. So that's next. On the bright side, while we're in here, we could give the these valves a good looking over and make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to do. Okay. Doesn't really look like they're sticking or anything like that, so that's good news. We got to get rid of these two bolts up here and these two down in there, which I believe are both 12 millimeter. Readjust the camera to a little better angle for you. Oh my goodness gracious. There's your problem. Do you think it's gooped up a little bit in there? That is like straight up mud. No wonder we couldn't get it to do anything and it was just fouling the plug out. Jeez Louise. Alright, I'm gonna hit that with some carb cleaner. Like magic. I would call that night and day. Now to deal with this. Gonna clean it up the same way with the same stuff. I'd call that a slight improvement. Being sarcastic, of course. Now I'm gonna crank this over a little bit and get that piston all the way down. And get that cleaned out in there as well. It is pretty rough in there. Especially on this side. Alright, so we're just going to go with that for right now. I'm just cranking it over a few times. See if there's just like oil pouring out of the, from around the piston ring there. Like catastrophic failure type stuff. Like the rings just being gone. But it seems okay. Alright, now let's see about getting this thing back together. Make sure the push rods are lined up with the lifters. Now, let's see about getting some bolts in there and seeing if that gasket moved on us. Of course it did. Oh. Haha. Alright, I got all 4 bolts in there. Just using this and going hand tight. And always make sure that you're going in a crisscross pattern. So I hand tighten that one, and then hand tighten this one, hand tighten this one, and hand tighten that one. And as far as torquing them down, I'm going to use the same process. I'll give that snug down, give that one snugged. And of course, torque them down to spec. All right, now I'm gonna go about adjusting these valves. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stick a screwdriver down inside the spark plug hole until it's touching the top of the piston. And I'm gonna slowly crank this over. My screwdriver is going to come out, and then it's going to stop. Have a little bit of dead space, and go back in. Now I'm going to back it back up, and stop right there at that dead space where it's at the very top. You can see this valve is really tight. They're both actually really tight. So I already know that this one's supposed to be set at, I believe, 10 thousandths, and this one at 15. So 10 thousand for the intake, which is on the carburetor, goes right here. 15 thousandths for the exhaust valve, and of course the exhaust comes out right there. That's how you know which one is which. So I'm going to go grab a feeler gauge. All right, now to adjust these valves, this inner bigger nut, that's the I believe it's a 14 millimeter. That's actually your adjustment. The nut on top, which is a 10, that's a jam nut that just holds everything in place once you've made your adjustment. So we'll get that loosened up. Get a little more leverage. Man, I really wanted that not to come loose. There we go. Okay, so the jam nut is loose. We can get this on here and loosen it up a little bit. Trying to get the actual adjustment nut loosened up enough to where there's a fair amount of slop in the valve lifter, or sorry, rocker arm. Okay. Now, this one is supposed to be set between 10 and 15 thousandths. So let's go with actually, I'm sorry, this is supposed to be set between 15 and 20 thousandths. This one's supposed to be set between 10 and 15. Let's do this one at 16 thousandths. All right. So I'm looking to where I can fit that in there easily, but I can still feel it touching on both sides. That's pretty good right there. We'll get our 14 millimeter on there just to hold that steady and tighten up the jam nut. Alright, now I'm just going to do the exact same thing to this side, except I'm going to set it to probably 11 because it said the range you want it to be in is in between 10 and 15, so I figure 11 will work. So it'll just be the same thing as the first side, except I'm just going to repeat the process over there. Okay, put the valve cover back on and use the same crisscross pattern to tighten that down to keep it from getting any kind of warp or anything like that going on with it. And let's say we put a little bit more gas down the chute. Get the plug back in it, which I also cleaned the tip of it with some carb cleaner because it was so gooped up with all that gobbledygook. All right. Let's give it another little blast of the good stuff and see what happens. If we got a backfire, that's about it. Let's pull the plug and get a little bit more gas down in there. While we're at it, let's make sure we're still getting the spark. Oh yeah, tons of spark. All my tools go everywhere. And some more. I'm wondering if it just doesn't want to run with the carburetor off of it. Like it's just, there's not enough choke going on at all. I'm probably gonna move on to the carburetor, get it taken care of. We're gonna break it down, get everything cleaned out because I'm sure it's absolutely clogged all to pieces. And then get it back on and give it another attempt. All right, let's get into this carburetor. Go ahead and take this out. Drain. Get the bowl off. Let's see what we have in here. That is a little scuzzy in there. Ugh, smells really bad too. That pin out of there. You grab a flathead, find one that actually fits down in there. That one does. I haven't plugged him out. Let's see if I got a better screwdriver. I already have one that'll fit down in there. Those bigger screwdrivers are too wide on the end to actually go down in the hole. Let's see what else we can get off of here. Definitely oily inside of there. I really need to get that jet out of there. This one looks like it might work, but it won't quite fit down in there. It's a little too wide, but I'm gonna fix that right now. I'm not worried about messing up the screwdriver. It's just a super cheap Chinese job. Alright, this was a little wide, so I put it on a diet. Now let's see if it fits down in there now. Oh yes. Screwdriver's a little warm. Can't imagine why. Come on. There we go. All that work for that little guy. Now I just got to get that pushed out, which you can get to it from inside. Of course, that's going to be stubborn as well. So I'm going to lube it from this side and down in here. I'll let that sit for a second and see if I can whap and bang that out of there. Alright, found a sculpting tool that has kind of a hook on the end of it. I'm going to see if I can get down in there with that and maybe do some poking and see if I can kind of coax it at least out enough that we can get it just to fall out. Alright, gonna have to try this experiment outside in the daylight because I can't see down in there what I'm doing. Well, that was the end result of that experiment. Hey. But it worked. And isn't that all that matters in the end? Now, I'm going to re-glove and start seeing if I can get this stuff cleaned up and blown out. I would like to have a ultrasonic parts cleaner to take care of this stuff, but it's not really in the budget right now, and I at least want to get one that's pretty decent. So we're going to do this the old-fashioned way. Alright, I'm going to wear a respirator for this next part. I have every door and window in my shop opened up right now, but there isn't really much of a cross breeze going on, and the fumes from this carburetor cleaner are not very pleasant. So I'm going to sound a little muffled. Alright. Let's just start hosing stuff down. Alright, I'm going to continue to scrub and clean. Whoop. And I'll get back to you in a minute. Alright, got everything cleaned up best I could. Now I'm going to blow everything out. float bowl didn't come completely clean, but that's about as good as I would get it. There's still some corrosion in there, but the fact that I couldn't get it off even with a wire brush and the carb cleaner, I'm not going to be too terribly concerned about it. You can see daylight through all the little pinholes in there, so that's good. Nothing left to do but get it all back together. Alright, first thing we're going to put back in is the main nozzle, and if you look at it, it's not the same on both ends, so you got to pay close attention to the orientation of it when you take it out, so that way, there we are, you get it back in the same direction that it came out. So we'll just drop that back down in there. I'm going to use this little pokey tool to kind of, well, I thought it was. Gonna try to kind of seat that back into place. You should see it. I don't think the camera will pick it up. Let's see, maybe if I get the flashlight going. I don't know if you can see that down in there, but it should be poking up just slightly from the body of the carburetor. Alright, we'll get the main jet back down in there. Take our modified screwdriver. Alright, that's in there good. Now what next? We'll get the pin back in the float. Okay, see that? Alright. Drop that back down in there. And take our pin. Sometimes these things go back in the very first try without issue. Sometimes you gotta do some finagling. Alright, and you want to have it evenly protruding on each side. I can live with that. What next? Alright, let's get the shut off back together. Get this back on there. Now, get this float bowl back on there. Alright, and the drain screw. The arm for the choke. Alright. Alright, let's see about getting this thing back together. Get this piece that goes on first. I'm going to go ahead and just put the gasket on there first instead of trying to get it to go on with the carburetor. Spark plug wire fits down in there. Now we'll slide the carb on. Need to go ahead and get the throttle cable or the throttle rod back in here. Alrighty. And next, this outer metal gasket goes on. Supposedly. There we go. Case for the air filter, because that's actually what holds the carburetor on. It just sandwiches it all in there. Get that surface cleaned up. There's a little breather hose that attaches on this back side here. There wasn't any sort of clamp or anything. Alright. Now I just got to locate the nuts to go on there. Actually a little premature putting this plastic cover back on because I forgot to put on the arm for the choke. Alright. And I was not able to locate the original nuts for this, so I just got some replacements. So that means the running total now for the money I've spent on this thing is about $1.20. So far so good. I need to get this hose back on there. Should have done that before I put the cover on, of course. Well, so what's next? I guess we should see if this thing runs. I guess that's next on the agenda. I'm gonna pull the plug out and give it a few drops of gas just to kind of get it primed, and maybe give a squirt of starting fluid down in the breather and give it a couple pulls and see what happens. Ah, it's leaking out of the lid. I'm gonna smell like gas for the rest of the day. I think that's got it. Turn the fuel on. Got it on choke. Throttle's all the way off. Well, here goes nothing. Again. Give it some of the juice. Well, I just saw a puff of smoke, but a puff of smoke is not running. All right, let's see what we can get going here. I want to pour a bit of gas down the hole. I'm going to give it a little bump of that for good measure. Get the plug back in here. And I've switched plugs out. I have another Predator engine that I use on my rototiller, and I know that it works fine. I went ahead and just pulled the plug out of it, so that shouldn't be an issue. Just kind of eliminate it as any sort of culprit for not running. All right, moment of truth time. Huh. It runs, but it's only running off the gas and the starting fluid that I put in there, because it just immediately died. So let's trace down what the problem is there with the carburetor, why it's not getting any fuel. First thing I'm going to do is loosen this drain plug and see if there's any gas in the bowl. Huh. Bone dry. I stuck my squirt bottle of fuel on the fuel line, and it was having bubbles coming up into the fuel, so I mean it looked like it was going somewhere. All I did was just kind of work the fuel shutoff back and forth a few times. I don't know if maybe that miraculously did something, but let's see if there's any fuel in here now. Well, screw's wet. Yep, it's dripping. All right. So, not sure what was going on there, but it seems to have remedied itself, which I'm not one to complain about that. If it wants to fix itself, that's okay by me. Okay, so we get the camera moved over again, and we'll give this another shot now that we know there's actually fuel in there. All right, let's see if we can get her going without actually putting any fuel down in the spark plug hole. See if it'll just start on its own. Wouldn't that be nice? Jeez Louise. All right, let's juice it up again with gas. I did let some out. Checking the bowl. We know it has potential. We just got to figure out how to make it start. Stay running. Let's try it again. seems to be just like the carb is, like it might as well not even be on there. It's just running off of whatever I stick down in the spark plug hole. And that's the only thing that's starting it or keeping it going at all. Because I've been trying to get this going on full choke. So both times that it started, it sounded like it was actually running at pretty high RPM, which I had it all the way back and the choke on, so it shouldn't be revving like that. That tells me it's only running off this, and this is just being completely bypassed, squirting the starting fluid directly into the breather. Had absolutely no effect whatsoever. So yeah, apparently we have a carburetor issue. Alright, I got the carb off yet again. Went ahead and took the bowl off of it. And I'm just going to go through this thing top to bottom, take every single thing apart again, blow out every hole, every little orifice, every channel that this thing has, and make sure that when we get it back together, if we have any issues, that we can rule this out as having anything whatsoever clogged on it. So let's get the thing apart again. Definitely wearing gloves this time to do this. I pulled on that pull starter so many times. I opened up and then immediately ripped open a blister in between my fingers right there. And I'm pretty sure if I got carb cleaner in there, I would definitely know it. Jeez, what a pain. I think I've sprayed every single passage out now. Just reconfirm that there's a clear passage through the main jet. Guess what, folks? There is not. There is no light coming through that. That's a problem. The main jet is now open. It was completely blocked off, couldn't see any daylight through it whatsoever. I'm still gonna hit it again with the carb cleaner, just for good measure. Take a look at this guy. See if I can see any light. Just barely. It seems like it's just about completely plugged up. So we'll hit it again. All right, that's good. That might have been the issue right there. Or I say might have, I'm sure that was an issue. The main jet is completely plugged up. You're not gonna get any gas where you need it. So I'm gonna get this blown out. Pretty sure that clogged jet was the culprit. So let's get all this put back together. I won't bore you with that. You've already seen that once before. And we'll get it back on the engine, and hopefully we'll actually get this thing up and running. Alright, I got the carb on there and all back together. Put some fuel in the line and cracked the float bowl. and it was full of fuel. But then I was thinking, in a rush to get all this actually going, from the very get-go, I forgot to actually take a peek at the oil. And I remembered, because of how much trouble I was having cranking this thing over yesterday, and it wanting to stop, you know, as you're trying to crank, made me think maybe it was getting close to being just totally hydro-locked. So it stands to reason, just from all the issues that we saw up in the head, that this case could actually be full of the proper amount of oil plus some water plus some gas, which if it's over full, you're going to have some issues. So let's take a peek at what we got going on in here. Oh my. Well, it's full to the point that it's wanting to run out, or almost run out, just from taking the dipstick out, and this thing's sitting level, so it's not like tilted towards the camera or anything with it, you know, wanting to pour out. But more importantly, check out the color. Looks like went a little heavy on the cream and the coffee, if you ask me. So I'm going to get this tilted back off the edge of the engine stand here and get all that drained out of there and put some fresh stuff in there. Alright, let's see if we can get this thing tilted back and drain all that gunk out of there. That is not a good color, or a good consistency either. I'm going to let that finish draining and put some fresh oil in there, so that way after we get this thing running, I will drain the oil again and use that fresh oil just kind of as a flush. Put some more in there, and yep, be back in a second. Alright, we are back to a familiar situation. Finished draining all the oil out of it and replaced it with fresh stuff. Float bowls full of gas. Chokes on. Gloves on. Here goes nothing. What say we prime the prime the plug hole. All right, give her another go. Man, that hurts. Oh, gosh. Well, I was trying to get to the kill to ground it out, but it just ran out of gas. Well, folks, ladies and gentlemen, it's a runner. 5 years sitting outside in the weeds, completely locked up, and we brought it back to life. That makes me happy. Especially considering your average person would just chuck this. I mean, they might chuck it right after it, initially got locked up. And especially they would chuck it after it sat outside for about 5 years. But it just goes to show, a little bit of elbow grease and about what, $4 in materials if you include the oil. Well, we'll call it $5 because I use some various lubes and starting fluids and whatnot. But yeah, $5 and it's good to go again. Now we just need to make it look pretty. And there it is, the finished product. The only thing I have left to do is I'll drain the oil out of it and replace it with fresh stuff before I actually use this on any sort of project. And I got it pretty clean to where now it can be stored away, and when I go to pick it up and move it around or do anything and get ready to use it on the future project, which stay tuned for that video. It will be up in the next couple weeks. So now whenever I go to fiddle around with it or need just to even pick it up and move it, or especially when I'm ready to use it on the next project, it won't be so disgustingly grimy, and I think it turned out pretty good. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this one. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to always hit that notification bell so that way YouTube will actually let you know when I post a video and you don't just happen to run across it by happenstance. I think I'm going to fire this thing up one last time to sign off the video. I'll see you next time, guys.